Hi, it's Will here. I'm a data guy with 10 years of experience. This channel is all about helping you to understand how data works without being a data professional. It is decided to help you to have meaningful conversation with your colleagues with the data in their job title, so data analysts, data scientists, data engineers, or whatever data title that is existing in your company. Well, today is going to talk about data architecture. It is going to help you when to have this conversation, why you should have this conversation, and how to have this conversation. So let's dive into it. We start with a horror story. The year is 2018. Some people probably still remember TSB, which is a UK bank, a retail bank, has quite big IT meltdown. So some people can't get into their account. Some people have a bit of a panic attack because their saving or their account actually reduced by many zeros. So imagine all your lifetime saving gone down to 55 quid. That must be quite scary, right? Well, so how did all that happen? So the whole IT system or IT migration project is actually pretty good. It is a modern platform. It's well thought out. It's catered for TSB for the next 20-30 years. Because of all the sort of new foundation work in the IT system, and they have actually been very diligent with their data migration. So as far as the research goes, that there's no error in terms of moving from sort of like the old system to the new system. That part, the moving part, was actually perfect. That there's no data loss. So everything goes well. What could have gone wrong? Well, it is one of the sort of like data architecture problems that is often overlooked in IT planning. So whilst they plan all the IT architecture operations, what they haven't quite thought about is the details in the data part, which is the old data moving to the new system might not actually be usable or cannot be used in the same way. So as a result of that, they basically have a bit of a meltdown because the old record has been moved over to the new system, but then the new system interpret or process the data differently, and as a result of that, you have the so-called meltdown, and the poor CIO lost his job. Well, lesson learned. If that problem is put too far and too distant for you, let's have a look at the following examples. Let's go through some exercise. Imagine you're head of finance or head of money in a large charity in the UK. With some help of some volunteers and some CRM company giving you a discount, right? You set up a really efficient but cheap CRM system. You get everything set up so that the 8 hours a week work that used to be done by your department now can be done with kind of like minutes, within half an hour. So everybody's happy. CEO is happy, the volunteers are happy because now they can actually do more meaningful work helping people rather than doing the unnecessary admin. Well, it's all well and good until the end of the year, charity commission comes, and you realize that, in order to reach the level of auditability, which is to demonstrate these donations linked up to these financial transactions in the financial system, you realize there's a bit of a problem. So while the money add up in the CRM system that handle donations and your internal financial system that is doing all this financial statements, they don't actually have that modular connections from donation in the CRM program linking to the financial input in the finance system. So you're scrambling because you didn't quite thought of that, and when you need more detailed information or when you need data to flow from A to B or have a meaningful connections, it's not there. You are rightfully scrambling because you do not want to upset charity commissions, especially in the UK, and that is kind of another hand-on case of a bad data architecture. Well, with all that said, what is data architecture? So in a sort of non-technical term, just think of data architecture as a good delivery system. So in a pod city, so imagine imagine a pod all the cargo ships coming in and out of the port, they're offloading and uploading cargoes, they need to go to their various places. A good data architecture is a well-built, architecture of a port system. Everything is arriving on time at the right place. You have the right equipment, and what you're expecting is in the right size. All in all, everything is within the expectations, and you can actually, an even better top quality architecture can actually even handle orders of events that you didn't cater for. So that might actually be where you realize you're paying good money for good data architecture. When new data comes in, or when there is something sort of like upstream, your third party just decided to send you rubbish. This is when a good data architecture actually sort of like see its values. On the contrary, if there's a bad data architecture, as we have seen in those examples and exercises, there will be formatting issues, there will be delays in the data pipeline, and you have to do a lot of manual work, which is kind of a bit of a trademark. So if you're doing a lot of manual work, pulling reports or things like that, that probably means you don't have data architecture, or you have not very good data architecture. Ultimately, whenever there's manual work, whenever there is delay or errors, that leads to confusion, and it's not good because it's taking up everyone's time to be in firefighting mode. So, with all that said, it will probably always be good to think about data architecture when you're going to try a new tool, or when you're upgrading existing system or making changes to it. You can, of course, you're going to talk to your data team. Who else would you talk to when it comes to the topic of data architecture? So, what can they do for you is they can clarify the connections, identify data gaps, and put in the new data quality controls and look at the longevity problems, like how hands-on would it be, what training would the teams using those new system actually needs, and basically, if you are working with a good data team, they're probably going to ask some questions like along the line, like what tools would this sort of like this tool that you want to implement or upgrade be connecting to? Will the process be automatic? If not, what are the manual interventions? What could have gone wrong? Where can we sort of like do our data checks? And what are the real long-term causes? So what kind of support or training, etc., you will need to think about. And as a bit of a sort of like pro tip, as a sort of like data guy myself, I would very often recommend people or offer people something called data map. So it's kind of a bit of a flow chart showing how data flow from this system to that system to whatever system that they're flowing to at the end. So always have a flow chart. That is going to be really, really useful. And trust me, your data team will really appreciate it when you have this conversation, because, well, it's kind of respectful, and they won't be taken by surprise when the new system is developing or in flight with evident flow, obviously, from the data point of view. And good data means they can actually focus on their day-to-day job instead of firefighting, so everybody happy. Right. With that said, I think it's always good to involve your data team early. But what happens if you don't have a data team? Well, there's always kind of like categorically two paths you can go down. You can either go down consulting, or you can go down DIY. So without going into consulting yet, let's go into DIY first. So for DIY, if you are a lifestyle business, or you are a sort of like small company, you're not intending to hire a consultant or do something like that, you can always focus on a small win. So some consideration on how systems talking to each other, how things are going to link up. You can even kind of like having two meaningful Excel spreadsheets that's like linking up with each other using good VLOOKUPs. If you think about it, and if it works, it works. You don't have to have something really, really fancy if it serves your purposes and your scale. If you're sort of like a little bit more savvy and you want to use sort of like tools on the market, often ask for the data integration features. Many of them nowadays do automatic integrations. So it could be like HubSpot, it could be Google Analytics. They have like really good kind of like integration sort of like tools and options, and it's one of those. It's one of those. It helps because it's a win-win situation. If you set up successfully, you're a happy customer, and therefore it is in their interest to kind of like get that sort of like set up right at the get-go and save each other a lot of headaches. So that is the DIY path. This is for people don't have a lot at stake with their data, i.e. it's not legal or sensitive data, or it's not going to be costly if you mess the data up. So it's kind of a bit more forgiving. Or if you are in a sort of like small organization where you cannot afford the data to you. So what if we flip the conversation around? So big company, big state, you definitely want to get some consultants in. So I'm not against consultants, albeit in the business world that there's a lot of kind of like stigma, I suppose, using a consultant. Well, having that said, using consultants is well and good. That there are a lot of good consultants out there, sort of like doing various things in the data world and the IT world, and I think these are the things to watch out for. So if you want to sort of like employ consultant or consulting companies, that you often want to look out for over engineering, because that's going to end up being long-term dependency. Documentation is kind of a bit of a big thing to watch out for, both internally and externally. I'm really always an advocate for documentations. If you don't document, you're going to lose that knowledge forever when whoever the person working on it moves on. So always get involved. If you are not a technical expert, get someone to sort of like to talk to the consultant, or ask the consultant to do documentation so simple that you or someone can actually understand it in your organization, because like that should be part of the service, right? I would probably say a bit of a pro tips is the hit by the bus test. So imagine whoever is working on it get hit by a bus. Whoops. What are you going to do, or what is your organization going to do? If the answer of that, apart from the obvious sadness, is that, well, we can't refunctions because that work has all been done by John or whoever, well, then you have a problem. So documentation is very important. And I probably want to talk about a bit of misalignment or against milestone, priorities, delivery, timeline. Usually, just like many projects, you often are over time or over budget. But I would probably say that don't bring the consultant for that, and you can actually do things to mitigate those problems. So clear, transparent conversations is important. Each team should lay out their expectations and their promises like clearly. You should get your internal team involved, just so that you can always keep an eye on the situations, and don't actually think that this consultants are cynical to be deliberately sort of like moving off target or sort of like doing other things that you're not happy with. The truth of the matter is, consulting companies actually want good customer reviews, so they are actually in a position or in a sort of like setting that they want to build world-class delivery, so that you're happy and you're going to shout about that. The problem often is they have a tendency to aim for perfections, and hence the sort of like over budget or over engineering of a solution. But I think this is where you will need to sort of like hang in and kind of like basically have that conversation. Well, don't let perfect get into the way of the good. If you have the key things delivered, I think that's going to be all good. So the key is get your team involved, have clear expectations management, and most importantly, documentations. Because very often in documentations, a lot will be revealed. So after talking about all the gotcha, what to do, for a story if you don't do it properly, is there anything that we can lighten the mood a little bit? Well, of course there is. So let's talk about another UK business that many of you living in the UK might actually come across. Sainsbury's, the supermarket. So Sainsbury's as a supermarket is actually quite gone through quite an amazing digital transformation. So as you can imagine, huge company employing a lot of people all over the country. I know it's only UK, but you know, UK is still a big country by population and by sizes. And to think about the hundred of stores they have across the UK and managing all the logistic, all the pricing and everything is actually quite a terrible, quite terrible but exciting sort of like data challenge. So what the digital transformation happened, there's a lot of good stuff in there, but one of the key win is the data architecture. So what they have done as part of the success story is that they have actually go through all the disconnect system. Like you can imagine, the logistic and the pricing system kind of works separately. The HR system probably doesn't work with the sort of like, you know, store kind of like pricing team, etc., and probably no reason to until they realize there it actually is. But what they have done is they actually what we call removing data silos. So all the departmental data, all the kind of like regional data, all kind of like merged into one. They've done a lot of work on data architecture, so how data flow across each system so that they can connect on a very modular level. They have actually, along with sort of like technical integration, they have actually done definitions integration as well. So it's another important piece of data architecture, but what it means is that something let's say revenue in one system actually means revenue in the other system. They actually mean the same revenue. You might think that's trivial, but you'll be amazed by if you move across 7 or 8 systems and across different people, that definitions, if not clearly and carefully crafted, could actually be distorted and sort of like becomes many versions across the same organizations. Well, but with that, they have they've unified the definitions, like what people are looking at. They've unified the system, so then the data actually flow across many systems with sort of like reliability and cadency. And as a result of that, they have actually used a sort of like a central data system that has information and data that is the same effectively from the CEO office all the way down to individual stores. Obviously, they will have their own kind of like permission issues and etc. But say if for example a CEO is interested in a particular store, he or she can actually zoom in and see that store and all the relevant data information that the store manager or whoever sort of like using a store dashboard in the supermarket will actually see, which is huge. Back in the days, if someone asked for a report, you probably have to wait for days or months even to sort of like get a report, and you're gonna probably spend half the meeting arguing why this report is not matching to the other report. But with this well-built data architecture, the data flow top down, bottom up really seamlessly, and also horizontally across many departments. So it's a really powerful story. And if a big complex organization like supermarket can do it, then obviously you can do it too with the right mindset and the right conversations. So the takeaway to sort of like encapsulate all that, the data literacy lesson is that whenever you build a system or in upgrading a sort of like existing practices, a little planning upfront is going to save you a lot of headaches later. I can't emphasize that enough. talk to your data team, or if your IT team is cover data savvy as well, talk to your IT team with the data questions that we mentioned at the beginning of the video. So and it really is going to save you a lot of headaches, because very often you might think that it is an IT problem, and if it's not working, you can just fix it. But unfortunately for data, once you generate some bad data that's kind of like almost nowhere going back, you will just have to live with it one way or another. In summary, hopefully you can appreciate the risks and the consequences of poor data architecture, and how to involve the right people early. So the right people which is a data team, but also ask the right questions. They will often going to have the right responses or point you to the right direction. And hopefully this kind of questions is going to be useful for you to sort of like to have a meaningful conversation. Thank you for watching. And if you face a data architecture nightmare before, please feel free to drop a comment below. We would love to hear your story. And if you find content like this interesting, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We're going to post more content related to data literacy and AI literacy in this channel. And if you have anything specific that you would like us to talk about, do feel free to reach out. But until then, have a good day and goodbye. Thank you.